Hello, my name is Mardi and welcome back to my channel. Priority reads. I have them most of the time. Most of the time I also don't really finish them or start reading them at all. Nonetheless, because I am moving to England in September, there are a few books I would like to finish before that. If I could, if I somehow had the physical and mental ability to do so, I would love to just finish all of my 90 unread books I have here in Germany before I move, because I can't take them with me, so they're just gonna be here for a whole year without anyone reading them. But because that most likely won't be possible, because that's just not my reading pace, even when I don't have much else to do at the moment, it's just unrealistic to finish 90 books in 4 months for me, especially since I also have the habit of buying enormous books. Most of my books are, I think, above 500 pages, and those that aren't are non-fiction books or classics. I decided to try and figure out 10 books total that I consider my priority reads until September. Will I finish these? Experience has shown me no. Experience has shown me I will show you now the 10 books that I want to read, and then I will read maybe one of them. But we are hoping for a better outcome this time around. So I have 5 fiction and 5 non-fiction books, and as always, I will start with the fiction books, because I honestly believe that most people are more interested in those than in my non-fiction books. Most of these are also quite big, which is most likely not a good choice. The first book is The Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson, which is the 3rd book in the Mistborn series. Or is it Mistborn Saga? I think it's called the Mistborn series. Brandon Sanderson is the Mistborn Saga. Saga? However you would pronounce that word in English. Brandon Sanderson is quite a well-known author, I think, and this is probably one of the most famous, modern, recent, whatever, fantasy series there is. We follow Vin, who in the first book starts off as this poor girl who lives among criminals, is a criminal herself, and then falls in with a band of people, specifically Kelsia or something. I'm notoriously bad with remembering names of characters. I think his name is Kelsia or something like that. And in this world, there are people who can use metals when they consume them, and then gain from these metals magical abilities. And each metal gives a different ability. So one ability will be to, I think you can push away from metals, and that can help you fly. Things like those. And there are certain people who can use all metals, and these are called the Mistborn. There's also, in this world, the Emperor, what is he called? I kind of forgot what he is called in the first book. There is essentially the bad guy has won previously, and he now rules over this world. What else? There's kind of its own caste, or maybe people who have basically become enslaved, and then this Kelsia guy, or whatever his name was, he's not happy with all of this. So he gets this band of people together and starts plotting, and also takes Vin in as a Mistborn and teaches her a lot of stuff. I don't really know how to describe it more without spoiling the first book, and especially the second book. I can't tell you anything about the second book without spoilers, essentially, if you haven't read the first book. The next book is Assassin's Crest by Robin Hobb, also a series that I want to finish, the Farseer series, if I'm not mistaken. Also a series that is quite well known, I think, at least on BookTube. We follow Fitz, I think he's just called Fitz because he is the bastard son of the late prince. The prince has died in the first book, and he gets taken in to the royal family, and then he is educated as an assassin. However, the royal family doesn't really consider him their family. He's also trained in magic, I think. I don't remember what they call it. Essentially magic that I think only the royal families can do. There's the first prince, who's his father, who died. Then there's the second prince, who's now going to become king. And then there's the third prince, and the third prince absolutely hates his guts. Actually, wouldn't that be his... Oh, I don't remember what the exact timeline is, if that's... I think that's his uncles. Those are his uncles, yes. They're not his brothers. So, the second prince does kind of take a liking to him, and he helps that prince out a little bit. He also meets a young woman, and, well, it does get dangerous for him because there is this whole disagreement inside the family of who should take over the throne. It's full of magic. He also can somehow talk to animals, if I remember that correctly. Very intriguing. Had a lot of fun with the first two books, but I am kind of scared because this one is so much bigger. I have heard that the Farseer trilogy, that all three books are quite good, so I'm still hoping to get through it. There is also the life ship Traders, which I am very interested in because I've heard that apparently it follows ships, and the ships are sentient. And I would really love to finish this because I want to read the series kind of in order. So I would like to finish this so I can start with the, what's it called? Farship? What did I just say? Farship trilogy? Life ship Traders. Sorry, the life ship Traders. So I can start with that as soon as possible because I've heard that a lot of people thought it was too much, but I kind of like these very weird scenarios of sentient objects. The third one is a classic, Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe. I have to be quite honest, I don't really know a lot about this book, except I did buy it about 3 years ago, I think, when I wanted to read up on specifically people of color in America, and I did do that. I just never got to this book, and as far as I know, this was written in the Civil War? Yeah, it says here it was written during the times of the Civil War. It talks about slavery, specifically about the slave Tom, who we follow. And it is supposed to show the brutality of slavery. Now, I obviously don't know if this book is still seen as relevant, essentially, or if it is supposed to be a good depiction of slavery and of what happened during that time. I also think it was written by a white woman. I guess it wasn't really that common for women to write at all, at least books at this time, and get published. But I also don't know if a white person would be able to depict the horrendous treatment of a slave that people had to endure during that time. So if any of you, especially those from US America, can give me like a hint on what to look out for in this book, or maybe even have better recommendations for books about slavery or people of color in America or in the world in general, different cultures, also trying to read up more on those, whether it's fiction or non-fiction. I would be very grateful for you to give me any pointers, but for now this will go on my priority list just because it's been here for so long and it's honestly kind of a disgrace I haven't read it yet. Next book is probably gonna be the next book I read after I finish the two that I'm currently reading, which is Hungerstone by Kat Dunn. It says on here, "For what do you hunger?" I don't think that's part of the title. It just says it on the cover. This is one of my newest books, actually. I talked about it in my last video, definitely. It's a retelling of the book, oh, I think it's Camilla. I never actually read Camilla. Apparently it was an inspiration for Bram Stoker's Dracula. I did read the first, I think, 30 pages. I think I actually got quite far. It's like one of my shortest books I own, and also has pretty big font. It follows Leonore, I think her name is. Yeah, Leonore. We start with her, and her kind of boring life. She's married to a man, obviously, because this plays in the 19th century, I think in Victorian times. But the marriage is not going well. It's not the worst marriage in the world. They're not completely opposed to each other. It's just kind of standing still. She never got a child, which she's always wanted from this marriage as well. And I think she kind of feels like a failure. And then her husband is actually kind of successful in his business. I forgot, I think it's something to do with stones. I forgot what exactly he does. But he's kind of successful, so it takes up a lot of his time, and she's just sitting around. She's also a little bit sickly, I think. And then they go to their country estate, which is quite the normal thing to do, I think. I think it's just that in season you're in London, and then outside of the season you're in your estate, something like that, I think is what is going on here. But on the way there, they are kind of interrupted by a carriage in front of them that has, I think it has crashed. And the only person they find is this woman who calls herself Camilla. Before we even get to that, however, there's already a scene of Leonore being in her bedroom, feeling like there's someone there. And from what I know, I've read up to the point of the crash of the carriage. Of the crash of their carriage. That's a horrible sentence for me to say. I've read until then. I think in the following, Camilla will move in with them and be essentially nursed back to health, except apparently she is always in very good health at night, and then she seems to be pale and not doing so well at day. This is a sapphic love story, so at some point they will fall in love. I don't know how healthy it's going to be, because obviously I'm gonna just assume that Camilla will be a vampire. I haven't read the book yet, but that just makes sense from what it says on the back, and we're talking about Camilla, which is an inspiration to Dracula, so I would assume that there's some vampirism in here. I don't know if it's an actual vampire or if it's just a woman who likes to drink blood, because that could also be a thing, I guess. But yeah, lesbian vampires. That's what we're going for. And I think I'm going to read this next because I need a palate cleanser after I've read so many complicated, harder, thick, big books. The last one, while we're at thick, big books, is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. As I said last time already in my last video, this is on my TBR because I've seen so much about it. I have decided I would like to read it before I move to England, just so I can maybe make a vlog on it. I know that it has a lot of different opinions, and some people love it, some people hate it. I think we follow a group of friends. There's also some form of gay love story, but I've heard that that is the worst part of the book and apparently extremely toxic. It also seems to speak of childhood trauma. So I think what might be a thing is that childhood trauma, especially, but any time of mental health issues, is often perceived extremely different by different people. So you can have similar experiences in childhood or in adulthood, but then come out very different. And I think that that might be part of why this book is so beloved but also so hated, because some people see this as a representation of their life maybe, and others might see it as maybe invalidating or maybe even very gruesome and gross. So that's what I think might be why there's such different opinions on this book, and I would just like to see where I fall on it. Okay, I think I accidentally moved the camera, but I also tried to give you some more light. We are going to continue with the non-fiction, and I think this is the biggest book on the list, which is also the most unlikely to get read, if we're being honest. It's Freiheit of Freedom by Angela Merkel, who used to be our chancellor in Germany. And she wrote her memoirs. It's only, or mostly, I think, about the time as a chancellor. I think she did it kind of similarly to Obama, right? She does talk a little bit about her upbringing, but it's mostly, I think, about her years as a chancellor. I got this one Christmas ago, I think, So when I was still living in Slovenia, and I haven't been able to read it yet because I just always have so much to do. And next to university work, this is just very heavy reading if you already study something related to politics. But now I would like to read it before I start my master's, which is also gonna be related in some ways to politics. So we're going to try to get this done at some point until September. Again, I think it's like, let me see. Actually, it's not that long, it's just that the pages are really thick. It's like 720 pages. The thing is, German books usually have a little bit thicker pages than English ones. Either UK or US American editions. I don't know why I don't know why English books have these very thin pages, but in Germany we usually have a little bit thicker ones, which are probably more durable, but it also makes the books just a little bit bigger. Also, the German language just needs way more words than the English one. I think the English version of this is definitely shorter. Usually the English versions are shorter. Anyway, there isn't really much more to say about this except gonna read it, hopefully, maybe at some point in my life, at some point. The next book is also one I've wanted to read for a while. It's called Two Wheels Good: The History and Mystery of the Bicycle by Jody Rosen. Little fun thing about me, I love riding my bicycle. After I graduated school, I went on a 2-week biking trip through the Netherlands. Originally, I wanted to do 8 weeks through Germany, but it was during the COVID pandemic, so I had to kind of compromise. And to this day, I do ride my bike a lot, not as much anymore because I didn't have one in Berlin. I did have one in Ljubljana, but it was a pretty bad one, so it wasn't really able to go for very long. I'm most likely gonna get one in England as well, just because it's very easy to get around on a bike in most places in Europe. It's not always the safest. I would actually recommend a helmet. I do wear a helmet when riding a bike, even though no one else in my city does it, I think, but I'm always a little bit scared. Also, I do tend to even go to other cities with my bike, so I will drive through the middle of nowhere alone on my bicycle, and it's just safer to have a helmet on. Anyway, not the point. The point is, this book tells you the history of the bicycle. I think I get like the first 10 pages at some point. Don't really remember too much, except for the fact that there are very few pictures actually in here, which is very nice that you can see. Now I obviously can't find one. I tell you about the pictures and then I can't find one. There's a little one. But yeah, so it's just about the history of the bicycle up to, I guess, the 2000s, I'm assuming. The next 3 books, which are also the last 3 books, I will be reading, one out of interest, but also because I do want to prepare a little bit for my studies. I don't really know what of this I will need, but I will try to get through Growth Reckoning by Daniel Suskind. This is about economics. The thing is, I said this last time as well, these Penguin books don't tell you exactly what the books are about. Could I Google? Yes, but what is the fun in that? So I'm just going in half blind. I'm assuming that this guy is talking about some form of growth theory. The question I have now is if he wants to tell us that exponential growth is not possible and also not needed, or does he want to tell us how we can continue to grow our economy in the modern times, during all of the change that we are seeing right now? Because I think both concepts do have their time and place. I'm honestly not sure where I stand on the eternal growth debate, like worldwide. I think that a country like Germany that has grown a lot more than many other countries, there is obviously at some point gonna be a point where other countries will have to catch up if Germany wants to continue to grow. Anyway, we are now getting into economics. I'm not actually good at economics. I did just see that there is a chapter on degrowth on here, so I'm assuming maybe he's talking about how we can't grow forever and how maybe that's not even what we want. The Fantasy of Perfect Politics. Yeah, I think maybe he talks about the idea that at some point growth is not what we want or can achieve. The next book is The Digital Border, Migration, Technology and Power by Lily Chuliaraki and Muriel Giorgio. Sorry. It's been a while since I bought this book, but I think it talks about how borders change because of the digitalization of the world, and how migration changes because of that. This might not be what the book talks about at all, but I think, if I remember correctly, it's about mostly Europe and its the regulation between technology and migration, and it also talks about marginalization in some way, I think. It also talks about the digital border, and I kind of hope that they do define digital border a little bit more closely, because I'm not certain if with that they mean more the hurdles you have to cross when you get to a new country and there is an entirely different system of digitalization and of processing data and stuff like that, or if they mean that the digital border has of the regulations between Europe and other countries, or whatever they mean by digital border. I'm assuming they will explain it, because it would be weird otherwise, because I don't think digital border is a concept that everyone just knows. At least I hope so, otherwise I have some gap in my knowledge. I would hope they explain it. Honestly, I bought this during a time when I was learning a lot about migration in my studies and about integration, and when I already knew that I wanted to focus more on the technological aspect of politics and economics. So that's why I bought it. It does sound quite interesting, and it's not really that long. It's like 200 pages, a little bit less if you discount the notes. It's like 200 pages. I should be able to actually read this quite quickly, I think. The last book is also one of the newer ones I own. It's The Road to Conscious Machines, The Story of AI by Michael Wooldridge. This book essentially just talks, as far as I know, about how we manage to develop AI, but not in a straight line, but it also talks about all of the mistakes and about all of the things that we tried but that didn't work out. I don't think this will be the most up-to-date book on AI there is on the history of AI, just because it develops so rapidly that I don't think publishers can even hope to publish books up to on time for the new changes to be factored in. I always go kind of by the idea that books are always about 1 to 2 years behind. In this case, maybe only 1 year, because it is such a hot topic at the moment. But usually I find that books are a little bit behind on what is actually happening. I still find it very interesting, because the idea of showing what has gone wrong when developing AI and what did not work out, I find very appealing, because you can kind of translate it maybe to other aspects, to other technologies. And I think that with the way the world is changing and the new inventions we are hoping to get, I mean, we're still, I think, researching on quantum technologies, and as far as I know, we aren't even sure if quantum technologies will really be beneficial for us, or if they will even work. And I think that it just can be very informative in regards to other technologies, to read about a technology that has in the end worked out, even though we weren't sure if it would, and to see where we had to return to a previous starting point to get to the point we are at now. So those are the 10 books I would like to read until September. It is now the middle of April, and I'm still reading two books at the same time right now, so I don't know how many of these I will actually finish. As I said, experience has shown me not that many, but we're going to try. And that is all I have for you today. I hope you have a good week or weekend, depending on when you watch this. And I'll see you very soon.